Hello, my name is Virginia Theerman, and I am the Curator of Historic Textiles at the Charleston Museum. Our city has a long history, and it was a key site for the American Revolutionary War. Therefore, a good portion of our collection focuses on 18th century material culture. One of the shining gems from the textile collection is a Robe à la Française gown, circa 1753, that was worn by Eliza Lucas Pinckney. The Robe à la Française, or dress in the French style, is characterized by full box pleats hanging from the shoulders, three-quarter sleeves with full layered cuffs, a narrow conical bodice, and a full skirt with prominent hips. Though missing its original stomacher, a panel to cover the bosom and abdomen, this gown still showcases details of period construction. If you lift the ruffled layer on the skirt, you can see how the light pink would have been a vivid hot pink when it was first made. This gown would have been quite bright when Eliza Lucas Pinckney first wore it in the 1750s. Eliza Lucas Pinckney was an influential figure among the landed gentry in 18th century Charleston, with a multifaceted life. She was a diligent correspondent, a botanist, a planter, and a landowner, in addition to being a wife, mother, and grandmother. Pinckney's largest contributions to South Carolina history were the successful production of indigo and silk on two of her plantations, Wappoo and Belmont. Though she was very knowledgeable and invested in botany and agricultural work, she would not have been so fortunate without the labor and expertise of enslaved people, whose oppression built her wealth many times over. Eliza Lucas's love of botany would serve her well in her new agricultural pursuits, particularly in her attempts to cultivate indigo and the precious dye it produced. In a 1785 letter now held in the collections of the Charleston Library Society, Eliza Lucas Pinckney would recall the struggles to cultivate indigo from 1740 to 44, working with her neighbors and other planters to overcome crop destruction and even sabotage. Eliza Lucas Pinckney took on the task of introducing sericulture to South Carolina. She probably hoped that, like with indigo, she would succeed where many had previously failed. Maintenance of the worms is also notoriously labor-intensive, as they need to be fed constantly and have their enclosures routinely cleaned. Not to mention the steps required to go from cocoon to finished textile. To circle back, though, how does the pink dress in our collection enter Eliza Lucas Pinckney's story? Was it made in South Carolina from silk produced on Belmont Plantation? Based on the historical timeline, probably not. When Eliza Lucas Pinckney's gown arrived at the museum in 1940, it came with a note written by the donor. Catherine Felder Stewart, a direct descendant of Eliza Lucas Pinckney, wrote that according to family history, it was, quote, the dress she wore when presented at court, end quote. In autumn of 1753, after the family moved to London, Charles Pinckney was able to use his political connections to gain an audience with Augusta, Dowager Princess of Wales, mother of the future King George III. If it is in fact the dress Eliza Lucas Pinckney wore to visit the Dowager Princess, it would likely have been made in London either before the Pinckney family arrived or shortly thereafter. The Carolina silk produced at Belmont Plantation wasn't fully processed into finished goods until April 1755, when it was announced in the South Carolina Gazette that the Pinckneys had gifted a dress to Augusta, a year and a half after their initial meeting. Thanks to conservation by Laureen Finkelstein, expert textile conservator, the gown has been preserved for its future life, using funds raised by the Eliza Lucas Pinckney chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution in South Carolina. Thank you for joining me for the history of this Robe à la Française worn by Eliza Lucas Pinckney. I hope to see you in the historic textile galleries soon.